Good morning and welcome to Rising on a very foggy morning in Washington, D.C., but I'm in a good mood because I think we have a lot of subjects today that I am interested in discussing, so that's always nice.
Me too. I think one of the subjects is really near and dear to my heart is going to be your radar, which I took a sneak peek at. I'm so happy to see these beautiful polling results that we're going to discuss. Maybe not what you have to say about the texture of it, but the actual results make me pleased.
I also have to say, Lindsay, I'm digging your look today.
You know what? This is like a chic.
And the eye, what is that? I don't know.
The eye makeup is a little.
Eye makeup.
Okay, I appreciate it. You've been given a lot of compliments
eyeshadow
this week. Is it because it's Valentine's Day week extended? You're trying to be extra lovely and sweet?
You know, there was a Friday the 13th last week, and there's going to be a Friday the 13th next month, too.
That's scary.
I just realized that on the calendar. Isn't that weird?
I tried to go lovely. You wanted to go dark.
Well, because we were manifesting Morticia and Gomez.
Yes,
so
dark and lovely.
A little loveliness and a little darkness together.
Perfect. That's our combo. Yeah. Coming up on Rising, breaking this morning, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, former Prince Andrew, has been arrested after Epstein file revelations. We're going to get into that.
Plus, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified in a landmark case about social media addiction.
And what's the real reason Republicans are pushing for more voting restrictions right before the midterms? I'm going to discuss that in my lens. But first, Robby, tell everybody about what's on your radar.
Somehow Kamala returned, quoting those dreadful Star Wars sequel movies, in case you can't tell. Anyway, Kamala Harris got some good news from the latest CNN stats. According to Harry Enton, my favorite pollster, voters are having buyer's remorse, and if we could somehow redo the 2024 election, she would actually beat Donald Trump. So says Enton. Take a look.
Threats of some folks had a few. What are we talking about here? Well, let's just take a look here. Okay, choice for 2024 presidential election. The actual was Donald Trump winning by about 1.5 points. It rounds to a point. But take a look here. In a polled redo between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in April of 2025, it was within the margin of error, right? Kamala Harris by a point. But look at where we are now, according to an NBC News SurveyMonkey poll. Kamala Harris wins in a redo, asking folks, essentially, if you could redo the 2024 election, how would you vote? She wins it by, get this, 8 points, a massive shift from what we saw back in November of 2024 when Donald Trump won by 1 point. And I will note that this sample was weighted to the 2024 result in which Donald Trump won by 1 point, but yet Kamala Harris in this weighted sample, get this, she wins by 8 amongst a sample that voted for Trump by 1.
Now, there's just one problem. We obviously can't go back in time and re-vote. Moreover, it's just not that strange for voters to lose some faith in the incumbent and swing back toward the other party. I suspect that's what this poll is capturing. Some frustration with Trump and the GOP, not genuine enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. But of course, Harris is welcome to read it however she wants, however her heart desires. And she has given every indication that she intends to run for president again, even though many of the leaders of her own party are betting on other folks. Nancy Pelosi has already thrown her support behind Gavin Newsom. And the left-wing base of the party, which is probably sick of having their candidates overlooked by leadership, will be pulling out all the stops for AOC. Harris, on the other hand, I suppose, has to argue that she's owed a do-over. After all, she didn't get to run her campaign her way. She only had a couple weeks to sell herself to the American people, owing to Joe Biden's late exit from that race. Would more time have really benefited Kamala, though? I think that's an open question, but the answer is no. Kamala lost support over the course of the race as it became clear she was not at all prepared to separate herself from Biden at all. In fact, there appears to be some kind of inverse correlation between Harris's popularity and her presence on the national stage. Now that she's mostly unseen and unheard, I guess she's popular again with respect to Trump. But if she were actually out there campaigning for president, reminding everyone about her, my guess is voters would remember that they don't have confidence in her in the first place. Now, she's got a couple years to figure out a winning message, of course, but I have a feeling that Kamala Harris's time has come and it has gone. Voters want a fresh face. Democratic primary voters want someone who will channel their anger and their rage and evince their far-left politics. Does that really sound like Harris? I'm not even convinced it sounds like Gavin Newsom. Frankly, it mostly sounds like AOC. That is the one to watch for. As a reminder, it's not sane normal people voting in Democratic primaries, it's Democratic primary voters. So we'll find out about that in 2028.
That is not nice. Not sane normal people. These are sane.
Democratic primary voters, not sane, not
Yes, they are. They're very normal.
I'd say
and
the same
sane.
about Republican primary
Okay.
voters. Not sane, not normal. They're about to choose Ken Paxton to be the Republican in Texas, someone who has a dramatically lower chance of winning and is scandal-plagued, but they can't help themselves. Democratic primary voters the same way.
Okay,
primary
fine.
voters are bad.
I think, you're just wiping this, with a huge brush and just saying, oh, this doesn't work like this. Well, Trump didn't win in 2020 and then came back with a vengeance because people thought, well, his old economy worked better than Biden's current economy, so we're going to bring the old guy back. Mm-hmm. So you understand how this works, right? It's not like frustration is not the same thing as enthusiasm because it's only a two-party system. Right. So if you're frustrated at one, guess who wins? The other party. So this is really a time where that's how our system works, whether you like it or not. And Biden also himself lost the Democratic nomination twice, 2008, 1998. So, and then he became president. It happens all the time in our politics where somebody who didn't have the right moment and didn't have the right campaign all of a sudden does, and now they're the president. It happened with Trump, who's the president right now. I also think that
she didn't ever win the nomination.
You're right. That's a difference. So she has a distinct opportunity to differentiate herself and the time that she was asking for. I'm not saying that she's my favorite pick. I'm saying that you sound so confident about the fact that more time wouldn't have helped her. But there really is a strategic thought to more time, right? You need to have donor ramp up. You need to have some field infrastructure. She needs to have differing messaging from Biden, which is really difficult to do if you're serving as vice president under someone who people were highly critical of. And it seemed that he didn't really want to give her the opportunity to run for president. He was more forced to by people like Nancy Pelosi and others.
Well, he wanted to give her the opportunity in 4 years.
He didn't want to give it to her right now. He wanted to run again. So I think there's like layers to this whole thing where she probably lacked some of that confidence because she didn't know how far was too far without completely destroying the party or the administration that she built.
It takes to win.
No, you can't. You're working it
ruthlessly
because then you would call her weak for sitting there as vice president and accepting all the policies that Biden pushed forward for the last 4 years. So she was damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation. So more time.
Was damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right. So more time would certainly differentiate her. And people, we know how this goes with Trump fatigue, and we know how this goes when people get exhausted of the antics. All those people in the middle that were like supporting Nikki Haley, that were okay with Trump's policy suggestions on the campaign
all
trail.
Those people supporting Nikki Haley, what? All those.
She was polling.
People?
No, she was polling like in the teens at a certain point. Like people were really.
Oh yeah, she was really.
That's not a high, no, it's not a high polling. I'm saying these are independent people that also maybe didn't like Kamala for some of the things that she was doing that were too left-leaning. There's people that still vote in elections, and we've had studies saying that's more of the electorate that doesn't feel aligned with a party wholly. So you have to be somebody who can bring those people over, and perhaps with all the Trump fatigue and the antics and not living up to what he said he would do on the campaign trail, now Kamala has an opportunity to explain what she would have done differently than Biden and also be maybe a stable force that people were looking for, just something calm and collected. That's exactly why Biden won in 2020, because people were looking for something calm after Trump.
Mm. Yes. People are looking for economic stability, and that's what Trump promised, and he hasn't fully delivered on that, so there is some fatigue setting in, and that's not good. And Republicans' window to fix that is closing, which is why I am worried that if Democrats could nominate a far-left radical like AOC, and she could actually become president, and that would be terrifying.
You're so worried? I mean, if Trump was able to become president, and it's not terrifying enough to have me move to Canada, I think that you can deal with an AOC presidency and be just fine. We'll have lots to talk about, and I'll have lots of defending to do probably.
I mean, I'll enjoy my job more. That's true. You'll be on defense, and I'll be on offense.
Because every day you have to explain.
It's way more fun to be on offense than it is to be on defense.
And every day you got to explain the antics to me and get to the policy that's buried somewhere in there under all these antics. And
so much fun I'm having. Up next, President Trump is responding to Hillary Clinton, saying that his administration was engaging in an Epstein files cover-up. We'll be right back.
President Trump is responding after Hillary Clinton accused his administration of engaging in a cover-up of the Epstein files, saying it looks like they have, quote, something to hide.
Clinton made the accusation in an interview with BBC News earlier this week. Take a look.
There's something about this administration's attitude toward this, which I think really leads us to conclude they have something to hide. We don't. We have been willing to say whatever we know. We've even done it under oath.
And here was Donald Trump aboard Air Force One denying those allegations.
have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, a sleazebag, by the way. And I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in, and that's their problem. I don't know, they're going to have to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangement syndrome.
Do you think that she should publicly testify?
You know, I've been totally exonerated on Epstein, and it's really interesting because they've been pulled in.
Hillary Clinton and her husband, Bill Clinton, are set to testify before Congress later this month, but have continued to insist they were not involved in Epstein's criminal activity. And the two have called for a public hearing rather than a closed-door deposition.
Some people online took issue with Trump saying he was exonerated in the Epstein files. Journalist Michael Tracy wrote in part, one day he's saying he's sad that Bill Clinton has been roped into this mess. The next day he's back to the reflexive partisan shtick that he had nothing to do with Epstein, and anyway, the Clintons are the ones who are really implicated. Never-ending cycle of nonsense that only further fans the flames. Of course, Trump had something to do with Epstein. They were clearly good pals for a number of years, closer than the Clintons ever were with Epstein.
And right-wing commentator Zach Costello says, quote, who keeps telling Trump the talking point we care about is whether he is exonerated in the Epstein files or not? We care about the cover-up of all the criminals in the files. It's not about him. I'm realizing that Trump's narcissism is getting in the way of him realizing what the actual problem is. He calls the Epstein files a hoax because he only thinks of himself and what the left is trying to do to him.
I'm going to substantially agree with Trump here.
That he's exonerated?
Yes. Well, he's also not accused of anything.
That's why I said the exonerated word is kind of weird to me.
He's exonerated of public suspicion, right? Okay. He should be. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing on Trump's part whatsoever. Never was to begin with. And I think that's that. Now, I don't like... Excuse me. I don't like him throwing shade at the Clintons, but Clinton's trying to throw... they're trying to say, it's not us, it's really them. It's neither of them. There's no evidence against the Clintons either. Nothing. Zero.
Okay.
None.
Trump's team is
Move
actively
on.
trying to embarrass the Clintons.
Well, they're trying to embarrass him.
Stop. You always want to point fingers. I'm talking about the story right now. Clintons are speaking to his team because they asked them to come in and to come speak about Epstein.
Comer asked them to do that.
Okay,
not Trump.
Fine. Comer asked them to come in and speak about Epstein.
And Hillary said, we have nothing to hide. It's Trump who has
So let it be
to hide.
public. And also, Trump should be deposed and let it be public, because instead of giving these blanket denials that Trump keeps giving, why doesn't he give nuanced clarification? That's what we're about to get from Hillary Clinton.
Sir, when did you stop beating your wife?
Okay, but we're getting nuanced clarification from the Clintons, right? They can ask any questions. So why can't Trump do the same thing and then both move on? In the same way that he was, like we read in the tweet, good pals with Epstein at some point, right? Between 1990s to 2000s. Like, that was his friend at some point. So he needs to give.
Is not a crime.
And neither is it for Hillary Clinton having people donate to your charity. That's not a crime. You're right. These are all.
That's why I've said they have nothing to do with this either.
Right, but if the Clintons have to continue to be publicly scrutinized for this, well, the administration, since they've been so involved with calling it a hoax, and because Trump's hand-selected team has been so involved in the botched rollout of this whole thing, perhaps we should have an equal playing field where both former leaders of the world, the free world, go out and speak about this. Bill Clinton and Trump. And then we can just be satisfied in that regard and know that perhaps there's no criminal implication there. And then we can move on. I think that if Hillary's willing to testify and wants to make this public, so should Trump. And then we can move on and they can stop throwing stones.
Chelsea Clinton's wedding. And it's a little bit more substantial, but I don't really care. I don't think
that's up to you. You know how many moms invite people to their kids' weddings?
I do. That, which is why, and just associating with someone is evidence of nothing. But you see how this same smear campaign can get anyone at this point, which is why this is all ridiculous.
There is a reason, like the last tweet that we read, that Trump is egotistical in a way, that he thinks this is about him and saying
what is about him? Democrats are only interested in this issue so they can find something to get Trump. And they haven't found anything, and I suspect they won't find anything, but they're damned if they stop looking for it.
Well, I think
doesn't matter how many innocent.
It's an active
conversation.
No one
having to do with Epstein people.
That GOP leader Thomas Massie is deeply looking into, right?
He's a GOP. He's on the outskirts. He's going to be
He still is. He's in the party. He's in the party. Oh, because he's looking. The problem right now is that there are women that potentially, maybe, allegedly were sex trafficked in some way. We already know that Epstein has a charge with minors. We already know there's circulating evidence that there were a lot of people that were powerful around Epstein. French friendship doesn't mean much, but if there's an inkling that there might be a tie to some of these allegations, Thomas Massie is doing his best to see why Epstein operated with impunity for so long, who he might have known, and how many administrations this goes back to. I don't blame anybody who wants Trump to get out of his own ego and stop talking about himself, even if Democrats are, to look at what the rest of the world is talking about and saying, are there other victims that need justice right here? Are there other powerful men that are part of this ring? If not, let's move on. If there is, let's find it. And Trump, since he wanted to end bureaucracy and get to the bottom of it, bring all the light to the darkness that was politics, he should be the one on top of this case saying, just like his team was, just like Pam Bondi was, he should continue that argument that we're going to do what we said we were going to do and expose it all. And part of that would be him saying his piece and breaking down that nuance between his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Another part of that is helping the investigation any way he can, not redacting endless files, sharing information so that Thomas Massie can do his job of oversight.
The disclosure of the files has resulted in no new information about any criminal, sexual, pedophile perpetrator. What it has resulted in is Ro Khanna reading off the names of people on the House floor who had nothing to do with Epstein. They'd never met him. They were in the files because they were in a police lineup. Their names dragged through the mud, whatever consequences they're suffering. That is the tangible result of what we've done here, is people who have nothing to do with Epstein got accused falsely of criminal wrongdoing relating to Epstein. That is the tangible result of this effort so far. Right. And if that doesn't give anyone else pause, I don't understand my fellow human beings very well.
That's the only tangible result we have right now, but we know that we wanted to see the 2019 trial of Jeffrey Epstein through to see the sex trafficking charges that he was charged with.
We can't hang the man who's already dead.
Exactly, we can't.
I wish we could.
All right, but he may have had more information that he was willing to share because he knew he was facing extreme jail time. And so we'll never know the answer to that. So it's rightful for the victims and everybody supporting them to try to figure out what those answers might have been or share them with the public. You cannot bash people for looking into that. And sometimes
I can bash people
relationships
for a crusade that is damaging people of not that is introducing an idea into the public that is false, that is smearing innocent people. And just at some point, insisting on something for which you can't provide a shred of evidence should be seen as a negative, I would say.
And at some point, when it comes to, because you're talking about people's reputations being ruined in regards to their careers and things like that. No one's going to jail for being his friend. So reputations are ruined. At some point, private companies should have the ability to make decisions to cut ties with people that associate with known sexual predators,
those
right?
People I just mentioned have nothing.
Okay, not those. That's the one example, but there's several other people that you talked about. There are professors that emailed with him. There are other people that you talked about that are like, okay, you decided to
I'm not on board
speaking to this man.
That's just me. I'm not on board with a broad effort to. I'm not a cancel culture person. I'm not gonna call for people to be fired or lose their jobs or suffer massive harms for casual remaining in contact with that. I'm just not. I'm not going to do that. I'll do it for people who are emailing, who are scheming with him up to the very end, including Steve Bannon, Stacey Plaskett. No, I keep, the people who are very whose judgment is very flawed with respect to Epstein, certainly. But I don't think it was worth ruining all these innocent people's good names in order to find out that Steve Bannon is not the most morally upstanding human being. I actually didn't need much help to arrive at that conclusion. Thank you.
Well, we're going to keep talking about this because Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, former Prince Andrew, has reportedly been arrested in England. We're going to tell you more about that next. Don't go anywhere.
The UK's King Charles III is speaking out after police arrested his brother, the former Prince Andrew, over an alleged misconduct in public office. Charles III said, quote, "I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. Let me state clearly, the law must take its course."
Thames Valley Police, without giving names, said that they had arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk in eastern England.
The former prince was evicted from his home near Windsor Castle earlier this month, after which he moved to his brother King Charles III's estate in Norfolk. Mountbatten Windsor turned 66 on Thursday. The arrest came after the Justice Department released 3.5 million pages of files relating to the Jeffrey Epstein criminal investigation. Mountbatten Windsor has faced public scrutiny over his connections to Epstein, though he consistently denied any wrongdoing.
Now, Virginia Giuffre, in a 2021 federal lawsuit, accused Prince Andrew of allegedly having sex with her, knowing that she was only 17 at the time. Giuffre's family said in a statement, quote, "At last, today our broken hearts have been lifted at the news that no one is above the law, not even royalty. On behalf of our sister, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, we extend gratitude to the UK Thames Valley Police for their investigation and arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He was never a prince. For survivors everywhere, Virginia did this for you."
So this is big news. Huge
Yeah,
news,
huge.
wall-to-wall media coverage. And it's not a crime to be friend with Epstein. I keep reading in the news that it's over his Epstein ties.
Yeah,
But
they're
the Epstein
they're
ties are
making the
not a
headlines
crime.
salacious so that you click, but the actual charge is misconduct in public office. So I don't know what he's done. We're going to reveal that information, but they are searching 2 properties of his in England. And so we're going to see what they find about things that he's done and used the office in a criminal way. And that sentence is up to life in prison in the UK. So if he did something in relation to Epstein, and that people are just conflating the news that came out this week about Epstein and information that came
Right,
out
so
in
what
recent days with the fact
but
that he was
it's-
now arrested.
I take it to mean that it's Virginia Giuffre, that it's that accusation, and that in the files they think they found more evidence to substantiate her claim that they had a sexual encounter.
And she said she was sex trafficked to him by Epstein. And so that would start to begin, if this claim is true and they found more evidence in order to arrest him. Well, now we're starting to see what you said you wanted to see was some example of some coordinated sex trafficking ring. Now we have another person in there, and Epstein was the person in charge trafficking a girl. And I know that Giuffre's claims come with a lot of skepticism because of things that she's changed her story in the past, but this is still an example. If the police feel like they have enough to charge him, we'll see how this plays out.
What is confusing to me, though, is that in England itself, it would not be a crime for the 2 of them to have sex. So
At 17.
yes, the age of consent is 16 in the UK. So I don't know what. Now in Florida, it's 18. So it was a crime in Florida, but I guess are they gonna turn him over to Ron DeSantis or something for charging?
But this
guess,
was kind of the example that you were looking for. You're like, there's some conspiratorial
Well,
idea that there's some kind of ring.
No, because this has already been out there. We knew this one. The problem with it is that Virginia Giuffre accused a number of people, including Alan Dershowitz, and then later said that was not true. So that, to me, casts some doubt on her accusations. But if the files have produced more information that he had sex with her and she was underage, it was in Florida, and that violates Florida law, and they can charge that for some reason in England, then...
And you say we knew this, and that's kind of part of the problem. I think, well, first of all, there's a whole piece of the royal family. They're even distancing themselves from him. They've been rocked with scandals since 1997, when Princess Diana died, up until most recently when,
they want nothing.
Harry and Meghan had accused some racism happening in the office. So nobody knows what's going on. Yeah, no, I'm saying they have been rocked with scandals. So this is something they're also trying to distance themselves from. But there wasn't, even they were hesitant to like relinquish him of his title for so long, even though you just said flatly that we knew that he did something egregious.
No. We don't know anything. We know he's been accused of something.
Right. And so it seems like you would distance yourself from somebody like that way sooner, especially as the royal family, which has been documented in detail, that they oversee every little thing that's going on with each family member to make sure it's in line with what they want to present to the public.
Right. I'll be interested to see what exactly they have, what they found in the files that they think necessitates bringing charges now. I'll be all ears when they make that announcement.
Me too. As we enter into a midterm election year, are Republicans letting their fear of losing drive new policy? Stick around for my lens.
Welcome back to Rising. Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
Yeah, so here's what's really happening. Republicans are bracing for midterm losses. And instead of broadening the electorate, they're trying to narrow it. The House has already passed legislation requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. Now what comes next, some are calling the, quote, Save America Act on steroids, banning universal vote by mail, prohibiting the counting of ballots received after Election Day, banning ranked choice voting, restricting ballot collection, and expanding the Department of Homeland Security's access to voter rolls. Let's be clear, there are rarely ever documented cases of non-citizens voting. Even Representative Joseph Morell pointed out a real number that should concern lawmakers even more. 80 million eligible Americans didn't even vote in 2024. If election integrity were truly the crisis, wouldn't the focus be on participation? And even as Republicans turn their attention to November, they still struggle with how to talk about these past losses. In a heated exchange during the Rules Committee hearing last week, Representative Brian Steele, the Republican chairman of the House Administration Committee, was answering questions from Democratic Representative Joe Neguse about the 2024 and 2020 election results. When asked directly whether Joe Biden won Georgia in 2020, his response wasn't a simple yes. It was, quote, as reported, the state of Georgia cast its electoral ballots for Joe Biden. When pressed about whether Kamala Harris won Minnesota, the answer was, quote, the Electoral College was counted in favor of Kamala Harris. Why the linguistic gymnastics? If the elections were legitimate, just say so plainly. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Trump's political team is focused on something entirely different, the economy. According to reporting at a strategy session hosted by Susie Wiles and James Blair, pollsters emphasize that affordability will dominate voter concerns. One key message, according to the Daily Beast, was that Trump can be unpredictable, averse to data, and likely say and do as he pleases, so everyone else must stay disciplined and data-driven. That tells you a lot, because the numbers aren't great. So Reuters Ipsos shows 38% of people approve of Trump's job performance. A Harvard poll finds 53% of voters say the economy is worse today than it was under Biden. That's a flashing warning light heading into a midterm where history already favors the opposition party. So here's the bigger picture. Publicly, the message is election security, to rile people up, even though most people know there is no evidence of election fraud. Privately, the focus is the economy and economic vulnerability. That's not a coincidence. When you see new voting restrictions paired with persistent claims that losses can only happen through fraud, it creates a narrative cushion, a sort of built-in explanation if the political winds turn. And this is not about one bill. It's about setting expectations. If you're confident in your actual agenda and your economic record, you expand the playing field. You persuade. You compete. When you're worried about turnout and underwater approval ratings, you start redefining the rules. That's the tension at the heart of this moment, and voters should be paying attention.
Yes, I agree. The economy is the issue of the day, and the Republican Party under Trump has not given this issue the attention we know it deserves, and we expected them to give it, because this is what doomed, one of the things that doomed Joe Biden is being out of step with both the perception of the economy not doing well and the actual fact of the matter that grocery prices were up and housing prices and everything else. And I think this ruinous tariff policy has not helped matters at all. People of a basically free market, people of a basically conservative economic disposition have explained time and time again that doing this is just a tax on the American people. It's just like raising your taxes on the things you're paying for. And when Republican members of Congress go back to their districts, what they hear is complaints from small business owners about how everything costs more because of what the president's doing. But Congress could have reined them in and won't. They're hoping, all of them, behind closed doors, that the Supreme Court reins them in, which they might do any day now, in the decision on whether the tariffs are constitutional. So that's where we are. It's not unusual for the president's party to take a beating in the midterms. That's what usually happens. I think Trump is bracing himself for it for that reason. It's never too late to try to turn it around, but they're not really focused on that.
But that's the problem to me. Even if they are secretly having, or not even secretly, behind the scenes trying to figure out how to make the economy better, the fact that there's this overemphasis on widespread voter fraud when there's no proof of that whatsoever. The fact that we're hearing Kristi Noem, I believe, say we need the right people voting, and we're constantly hearing this message publicly about the fact that people that came here illegally are overwhelmingly taking over our elections with no proof whatsoever. And that's been the overwhelming messaging. The fact that we saw the FBI, let me finish. The fact that we saw the FBI in Georgia trying to grab information about the poll results from an election that Trump knows darn well that he lost. he's bringing back up the conversation and trying to rile up the base over the same lie that riled them up a couple of years ago to get people ready for thinking that even perhaps the midterms or the next election is stolen in some way or rigged because of migrants. And I just think that's not the case. And the fact that that is on the table, we should all adamantly say that that's not to be true. You don't have any information that supports your argument.
Well,
and the fact that you're using that as like a number one slogan when the economy is doing poorly is just a bad tactic.
Well,
he has to move on from that. It's not true.
The effect that illegal immigrants have on voting is not that they're voting.
That's what they're saying.
Let me finish now.
Okay.
It's that they disproportionately live in blue states, California, Illinois, New York. There's some in red states too. There's some in Texas and other places, but it does favor the blue states a little bit. And so that inflates the representation of California and Illinois and New York in the Electoral College, in congressional representation, by having the populations be bigger in those states, because the census is counting everybody, not just citizens. So that's the problem that the illegal migrants are having in terms of our voting. It's not that they're voting, it's the population.
Okay,
is that fair enough?
No, the fair enough point is that 80 million people didn't vote in 2024. Trump should be trying to figure out how to talk directly to them. Even Democrats, everybody should take this piece of advice. Figure out how to get the people that didn't vote, that may be frustrated, still have feelings, may be concerned about their day-to-day more than their right to vote, did not come out at all. And so that's a large swath of the country when you think about the fact that Trump got about 70 million votes, Biden has gotten around. So there's a whole swath of people that's more than who actually voted for either party in the last election that did not vote, that's sitting at home eligible to vote, either legal migrants or just literally sat at home. And that should be a concern to get them out in support of your policy. How do you support the people that feel completely disregarded by whatever each party has done, or not enthused enough to actually walk and get themselves to the polling place? There's some extenuating circumstances where people can't vote, and that's fine. But for the most part, people are just apathetic voters and just sitting at home because no one's talking to them. And so instead of Trump trying to go out and get those people and bring up his results in the midterms that way, he's trying to tell people, oh, these migrants, let's just blame everything on migrants. And that is, to me, a waste of time and a poor tactic when he knows he has no proof of migrants doing anything in our elections and swaying it in any way.
We'll leave it there. Next up, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified yesterday before a jury in a landmark social media case. Can't wait to discuss that. Stay with us. Facebook founder and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified Thursday in a landmark case about addiction to tech and to social media.
That case involves a now 20-year-old Californian known as KGM, who sued YouTube, TikTok, Snap, and Meta, accusing the companies of engineering their apps to create compulsive use. KGM claims that compulsive use led to body dysmorphia, anxiety, and even depression. Zuckerberg told the jury Thursday that, quote, "I think a reasonable company should try to help a person that uses its services." But lawyers for his company maintain that KGM's mental health struggles were caused by familial abuse and turmoil.
This is the first time he's testified about child safety in front of a jury, but not the first time he's addressed it under oath. He's faced questions of this kind from Congress multiple times, and there may be other opportunities to testify in the future, as dozens of state attorneys general are suing Meta over alleged child sexual exploitation and a bunch of other issues. The onslaught of litigation does come, as some countries are taking action against social media over concerns of negative effects on mental health. You may remember late last year, Australia actually barred people younger than 16 from using social media at all. Malaysia, Spain, Denmark also considering similar rules.
Meantime, Zuckerberg's company seems unfazed by the lawsuits. According to the New York Times, it's reportedly preparing to spend $65 million this year boosting state politicians who are friendly to artificial intelligence. It's the biggest election investment in Meta's history and marks a change in company policy, which previously would make small donations out of a corporate PAC. The company says it's getting bigger into politics over concerns that regulations could inhibit the technology's development. That money will reportedly be focused in Texas, where Meta has 3 AI data center projects, and Illinois, where last year it struck a deal to buy power from a nuclear power plant. Lots
to get into here. I don't think very highly of the last lawsuits of this type. I was flippantly going to say, I felt sad yesterday, so I thought of trying to sue Mark Zuckerberg for millions of dollars because, of course, it's his fault for that. But if I'm being less flippant, look, we all know that mental health is a complicated subject. And
Thank you.
Feelings of, okay, but the complication makes it so that it seems absurd to me that you could hold Facebook responsible for the complicated factors that go into someone's depression or addiction or whatever it is. There are ambulance chasing lawyers looking for the next, you stepped in a crack on the sidewalk, sue the cement company, you fell into your pool, sue the pool company. These kinds of forms of litigation. This is an even more abstract form because it has to do with mental and emotional distress related harms for the most part, which are very difficult to parse. I don't see how you could. Yes, these products are designed to keep you hooked using them, but so are most products. When somebody writes a book, they want you to read it a bunch of times. When somebody makes a movie, they want you to go see it a bunch of times.
No,
this is
come on now.
similar.
No. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's a creative, it's an expressive, it's speech. It's an expressive product that wants you to engage with it, and people are choosing to engage with it because they like it. And a small number of people can show, very small number. I go nuts when I hear this from, people saying this is digital fentanyl or this is just like cigarettes or something. Cigarettes killed thousands and thousands of people from lung cancer. How many people can we say have been conclusively physically damaged by social media? A couple people who you could plausibly say committed suicide because of Facebook or something. It's not nowhere even close to the scale of things we've litigated and found a harm on the maker of the product. So I'm just color me very skeptical here.
And you don't have to go to the most extreme option like suicide. It's not the only thing. It's saying mental
those are the
health
kinds
effects.
of people who are suing them.
Yeah, well, social media used to be about connection, and now it's really all about addiction. There are people who work for the company that have said
Connection
that
is addictive. Go ahead.
There are people who work for the company that have said, we've programmed these things to make every sound, every single thing be more addictive so you want more. It's
They're
like
high
gambling.
on supply. They're hyping what they
No,
did.
it is gambling. It is like gambling. The same thing, you get a cha-ching at the slot machine and you're like, oh my God, and you hear it's all programmed to make people stay there. The difference is that kids can't play.
Yeah, and I think if you sue the casino,
let me
I
finish.
would also...
Kids can't go to the slot machine. That's the thing. We have laws protecting the kids. Children are not fully formed consumers. So obviously they'll be way more impressionable and easily addicted to things, which is why they can't gamble. So when social media goes for a connection that was made for adults and then spreads out into something that anybody can use, even kids, and there becomes a gambling whole side to using the platform, well, that's something that should be looked into and have oversight by regulators to make sure that we're not taking advantage of young, impressionable minds that also could deal with things like anxiety, depression, and all the feelings that come with being a young person in this world.
This is a lawsuit. This isn't regulators sitting down.
But I think it
and
opens
saying,
the door for
what?
precedents to try to figure out what's next. He's testified at Congress a bunch of times. A lawsuit like this can set precedents. TikTok settled in a similar instance. TikTok settled. They decided that, we want to put this to bed. But when lawsuits like this come, it's either money or laws that are going to make companies change. That's it. Either they lose money or laws are making them change. And so these are the two reasons.
Book, Section 230 says the speech on the platform is your responsibility, not the platform's.
Yeah, well, you should.
We already have a law.
You have to put
it says
child welfare over a profit motive. You cannot just spend your whole time trying to figure out how to.
But I'm not convinced this is even okay, and then you point to a small number of harms as an example that this is bad for child welfare. What about lonely and isolated kids who who are not don't have friends at school and find a like-minded community on TikTok or something? What about kids who want to learn something about the world and are watching YouTube or watching Rising or watching whatever show they can find? What about girls who are watching makeup tutorials or whatever? They're getting some value out of that. What about people finding content that are enhancing their lives? That's the experience on social media. And you're saying to me, you're so certain that it's so bad that the government should, that the company should be sued out of existence. B, it should be, regulators should close off, should say, we know better, which is why we can't let a 15-year-old look at they can't look at YouTube too much. They can't look at TikTok too much. The governments of the world would love to shut down people's access to information.
No, I think that, the product is made to trigger this compulsive use of it. And so it has things like addictive, never-ending scroll. So you realize if you're watching a story, it just goes on forever. It'll never stop. It'll start showing you people's stories that you don't even know or follow. If you're on YouTube, it'll just keep playing the next thing. It'll keep playing. Like,
it's not hypnotism. You can just not use that.
Yeah, but people end up in, you never been in like, okay, I was looking at one thing and then you're doom scrolling, but you're an adult. And so now you're like, oh my God, I spent 2 hours like just in some people's lives that I don't even know. Why is this topic on the top of my mind? It's almost like addicting, but adults can manage that way better than children. I'm not saying adults should be picking up the phone and blaming somebody for anything that happens to them. But this KGM person is now 20, but was a kid and said, a lot of that comparison and things that adults even have trouble dealing with. And mental health experts have talked about this with the effects of social media and the whole problem with like comparison, being left out, feeling isolated. Sometimes the experience that was made for connection can make people feel even more isolated than it was if you had no friends in real life.
The statistics are not broadly supportive of this idea that it's really bad for kids. What the statistics find is that kids who use social media aggressively, addictively, are not well off, and so are kids who don't use social media at all.
But it's made to be used aggressively, addictively is what I'm saying. So if kids use it are not well off, and you're saying that studies pointing to that, well, if you're making it so that more kids will use it aggressively and addictively, well then the problem's with the company that's trying to create that behavior and that pattern in children.
I support parents making these decisions for what the reasonable limit for how much their kid can use social media is. Not the government, not lawsuits, but parents, because every kid is different. And it might be that some kids, you got to take away their phone. And in schools, they should choose not to have them or keep them in the lockers or whatever. This is too new to know what the ideal policy for social media is. And it's obvious to me that we need to leave it at greater role for parents to decide what the right thing is at this point. The government does not know. It doesn't know yet. It's too new. So I would not do anything. Up next, another major technology company, more of this same topic, is moving its headquarters to Miami, Florida. We'll be right back after this. AI giant Palantir is the latest major company to set up shop in Florida.
Palantir announced the move on Tuesday in an X post, writing, quote, "We have moved our headquarters to Miami, Florida."
The software analytics firm Palantir was founded in Palo Alto, California in 2003, later moved to Denver, Colorado in 2020.
Now, Palantir became the latest big business to migrate to South Florida, which offers a friendlier tax environment compared to Silicon Valley.
Palantir CEO Alex Karp said in a letter in 2020, quote, "Our company was founded in Silicon Valley, but we seem to share fewer and fewer of the technology sector's values and commitments. Some technology executives, of course, moving out of California, fearing a potential 5% wealth tax on residents with a net worth of over $1 billion. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg reportedly bought a mansion in Florida, while Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos have also made moves to Miami.
Palantir has faced criticism for its alleged involvement with government surveillance and other objectives that critics deem unethical. The Hill reported in January that Palantir secured more than $900 million in federal contracts in 2026, including a high-profile contract with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement.
Palantir's Alex Karp in December said at the New York Times DealBook Summit, quote, "Are we building a database that can be used for surveillance? No. Okay, but the more subtle version is, if you're legally surveilled, could you put it in our product? Yes. Are our enemies surveilling using data that goes into our product? 100%, and I completely support that."
You know, I saw this article on a couple, I think like right-leaning outlets, like say New York Post or whatever, trying to conflate everything. So because there's this whole bashing of CEOs leaving California, Denver is just randomly catching a stray. So Palantir had moved out of California 20 years ago and went to a business-friendly place. And I'm saying that as a resident of Denver. Denver, Colorado, and now they're moving to South Florida amongst all the other tech companies that they said they don't want to be part of the culture of in California. So it's just a company move and confusing about why they're making these moves when Denver is just a fine place to do business. And perhaps Miami or South Florida is a great place to do business additionally or move your headquarters. But I think to just say that this has something to do with the fact that Denver is not a good place for business and conflate that with California being not a good place. But there's no wealth tax being proposed in Colorado at all.
Fair enough. Not,
so I just
not trying to smear Denver.
I know I'm like on a rampage about
That's
Denver,
fine.
but I just like, how does this has nothing to do with why billionaires are moving. Say he's getting old and wants to just move to Florida. Like, why does this have to do with that same story?
I think it's interesting that Florida, though, is going to become the new Silicon Valley. That's where the tech people want to go, and it's because of the incentives. Friendly, regulatory, tax environment, a governor that respects markets and innovation and wants to be friendly to the tech sector. Florida's where it's at. It's great.
So what's going to happen with California? Now the movie industry is going away. You know, Netflix bought some space in New Mexico, I believe. You know, Tyler Perry taking over Atlanta. And now the Silicon Valley, California has to figure out what its new thing's going to be.
They brought this on themselves. The liberal governance, and in this case, it's not even the governor, California, Gavin Newsom doesn't support.
Yeah, he's against this, so I don't.
Right, it's the public employees.
So, but also, I just think like we have to remember, California has tried to pass a similar law that was similar to this tax on billionaires, and it didn't go through just a couple of years ago. So they're going to try again. Right, they might try again, and it might not go through again. So why are people leaving California just because of the idea or the thought of trying?
It's going to be retroactive.
Yeah, but it's, one of these times it's going to go through, and they're so fearful of that.
This one specifically is retroactive, so once it goes through, it will already be too late. So they have to go now.
Okay, and I think like, you know, perhaps Miami is a good place to move, but I don't know that all of this has to do with everybody fleeing California. Like I feel like they're just trying to find ways to throw California under the bus and just say that anything moving. There's a lot of people that still do really
climate. So it's the climate they're used to, but it's going to have the better.
There's a lot of people who just do business
Miami.
in California and don't want to leave California. I mean, to say that every single person's leaving, Google's still there, right? Yes. Netflix is still there.
I think it'll be. I think people should get on East Coast hours anyway, so the move to Miami makes a lot of sense. California's, you know, it's even knows what time it is there. It takes forever to fly there. I think Miami's a more convenient place.
I'm trying to envision you living in LA.
No,
that would be hilarious. I know.
I live in Miami though. Love Miami. That does it for us today on Rising Live. Thanks so much for watching, and you can look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you later.